Okay, thank you everyone for your patience. Now let's begin. Okay.
Okay.
Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. So I'm going to start slideshow from current slide. Okay, thank you for patience, everyone. My name is Colin McLean, and today we're going to cover pretty much the house rules. So please stay on mute and type your questions in the chat. And remember, this is a safe forum for discussion, and it's okay to disagree. And please turn off your cells. I know I've just done that because, when you're listening to stuff, the phone comes in, it's a bit of disruptive. And thank you so much. So we're going to cover pretty much the introduction of who we are, understanding AI bias, the impact of AI bias on the Black community, strategies to mitigate AI bias, community involvement and collaboration, Q&A session, and then a call to action. So about us, Claudius, you want to take it away?
Yes. So my name is Claudius Thomas. I'm the founder and CEO of my organization we've named my AIpathway.org. And my background is that I like to call myself an AI evangelist because I promote the use of artificial intelligence, and I'm here to try and help our community be part of that gravy train. I'm a mentor and coach, a startup founder of an organization in the Windsor Essex area that received $1.9 million funding to help Black entrepreneurs develop and grow, start up their businesses. Coming over from the UK a few years ago, where I managed construction of a shopping mall. My project was 5 million pounds worth, and also worked in Europe, where I helped the organization I was working for avoid a 33 million euro fine from the software compliance. And also, my main strength is that I design and build web-based application, and I did one for Canada's largest auto insurer, for example.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you, Claudius. Now about me. So my name is Colin McLean. I'm also a co-founder, and I'm also the COO. And what I bring to the table today is I've launched, I believe, 11 chapters across Canada. And of that, it caused an impact of 3,312 boys, approximately, Black boys, to start getting into the STEM fields. I was recently honored by the city of Brampton as one of the Black community's leaders and builders and change makers for 2024. And I sit on two boards for the BIPOC community, creating an impact of driving positive change and contributing to the well-being of communities they serve. Now, one thing that's not on here is I have a background in recruitment, which does relate to this discussion later on, and I'll cover that, how it relates. So I believe this is Claudius here.
So, in with researching and one's time spent in this environment, some interesting information comes along as to where our Black youth, where we're at in terms of being able to contribute to the society and the economy. One thing, interesting fact, based on research by Statistics Canada and also across Michigan and Detroit area as well, is on average, only 36% of Blacks hold post-secondary degrees. That is absolute dire, and that
Wow.
compares with 93% of white and 94% of Asian students. Now, it's interesting that the Canadian government are now putting a pause or drawback on international students um, coming to Canada to study. Is it because they don't want Canadians? They don't want the universities to actually have international students, or is it that they actually want to address this balance? Because this no this research was actually their own research, was a government research to look at how many Canadians um, own bachelor's degree or higher. So it'd be interesting to see. Now, there's a quote here. If I can, okay, let me take a look at here and say my AIpathways.org, which is the organization we formed, is dedicated to empowering Black youth through education in AI and STEM fields. Our mission is to bridge the gap and ensure that Black students are not left behind in the technological revolution. We'll be able to expand that a little bit more and with other webinars that we'll be doing going forward.
Mhm. Most definitely. And this
So
next
let
one's
me pose
Claudius.
a question to you, and if you can actually give an answer in the chat, please. How do you think AI technology can both help and harm marginalized communities, particularly the Black community?
Hmm.
There's no right or wrong answers here. We're just looking at, I'm interested to see what you come up with. How do you think AI technology can help or harm marginalized communities, the Black community in particular?
It's a very interesting question to ponder.
Yes. So answers in the chat. Try give us some interesting pose to consider. Okay, so let's next screen, please. Sorry.
Okay.
Another one, another thought. In what ways have you experienced or observed bias in technology
Mhm.
or data-driven systems? And how do you think AI could perpetuate or address these issues?
Mhm. Another good question.
Yes, we talk of racism, racialism, attitudes within secondary, post-secondary education, within secondary education, primary education, within government, within financial systems and services. But in what ways have you personally experienced or observed bias in
Hmm.
technology or data-driven systems, where the data or the technology itself has
Hmm.
actually perpetuated that bias?
Hmm. Okay. And then I'll move on to the next one
Yep.
question. Now, what role should the Black community play in shaping the development and ethical use of AI? And how can we ensure our voices are heard in this discussion? Um, put your chats in there, but what I can share with you is two examples of this between Clytus and I. Claudius was working on, I think it was a slide deck for some presentation, and you wanted to put in, I think it was Zulu instructor. So he types in Zulu instructor, create an image of a Zulu instructor, and lo and behold, the AI program produces a Caucasian hippie playing the drums to a bunch of Black youth. So that was a little bit concerning. And then from my take on how it's shaping development and ethical use, and ensuring that voices are heard in discussion is I was doing a slide deck or presentation, creating one, and I wanted to have an image of a robot interacting with a human counterpart. So I put robot interacting with human counterpart, make robot female, and I get this blonde, blue-eyed kind of a robot. So I said, let's tweak it a little and let's make her a black um, robot with black features. What the computer spit out was concerning because it produced a voluptuous, centralized woman with an afro robot, big lips, big everything. And the outfit that she was, I guess, wearing was not even close to what the first one was generating. So these are kind of things where we're talking about we've got to, as a community, take part in this data and curve this bias. This is hence why we're doing this.
And I saw an answer put in the chat by Afam. Um,
Okay.
great point that um, we can encourage member of Black communities to take courses in AI.
I love
And
that.
also you're saying that we're doing that already at Black Boys Code. However, the gap is still wide. Exactly, because Black Boys
Yeah.
Code is just one organization
Hmm.
reaching a very, very small minority, a very small number, but it is a start. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
We have to start, right?
Somewhere.
So, yes. Okay, so here's a quote. Like all technologies before it, artificial intelligence will reflect the values of its creators. This is a very important quote. So inclusivity matters from who designs it to who sits on the company boards and which ethical perspectives are included. Now, this is critical because part of this work that we're doing within the organization um, me being more of the technical person than Colin. Colin is a great partner in the operations and organization. I am more from the technical background. So I've been giving conversations and speeches on the AI journey. And in doing so, one of the things that's becoming very, very clear is that, and that's really the reason for this topic, is by default, AI is biased.
Hmm.
It is not biased intentionally. It is biased because it is based on the value of the creator. If you are solving a problem, you solve a problem
Hmm.
from your perspective. If you are diabetic, if you're African specific cultural person, and something is wrong in that area, in that environment, you solve that problem from that perspective. Does that mean it's a knowledge that is available and fair to all? The
Hmm.
answer is no, unless you start to do wider testing. So it is that context that we now have to bring when we look at why would a question to an AI tool, as Colin mentioned, or generate an image of a Zulu for me, when there's so many images of Zulus out there, even going back to early pictures of Nelson Mandela in
Yeah.
native dressing, you come up with a white Caucasian blonde-haired drummer.
Hmm.
We have to address that narrative.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And one other thing I can just interject is that I view AI as a small child, and it's looking to please and learn from the human counterpart. So if you had a small child, could you imagine if you had someone like J. Edgar Hoover, someone who was resistant to the civil rights movement and did everything in his power to stop and sabotage the movement, raise a child, or if you also had someone like maybe Nelson Mandela, who was maybe open for change, open for discussion, growing. Who would you want raising the child? And that's why, the biases plays heavily in that area. Okay, so I'm just going to move on.
And Colin, before we move on, Megan has added a good point here as well that knowledge is power, indeed. And
Mm,
I
true.
remember a commercial by Economist magazine once saying, "Knowledge is power, so get a private education." That
I love
always
it.
remember that. So
It's true.
educating and it's true. Educating and informing marginalized communities on this new front is an important part of combating biases and empowering individuals to be more informed about the pitfalls of technological advances. Megan, that's a great point because
Mhm.
we started on this journey now. So many these issues have brought us into this journey because I've been to so many conferences where um, Black presenters, I have to say, unfortunately, of certain age group, it does seem to be based on certain age profile. When asked about AI, the response is, "Oh, be afraid, be very afraid. It's going to take your
Mhm.
job." And it makes my blood boil every time.
It's like apocalypse, right?
So let's continue.
Okay, we won't go there. Let's move on.
No, no, not today.
Okay, this is yours here.
Yes. So let's look at some how let's get to understand what AI bias is. AI bias occurs when artificial intelligence systems produce outcomes that unfairly favor or disadvantage certain groups of people. To me, almost the same definition as racism, although racism to me is when you act on that deference.
Hmm.
This often stems from biased data used to train AI models. So,
True.
acting on that difference, where the data reflects existing prejudices, yeah, stereotypes, or imbalances in society. If
Hmm.
I can give a simple example to bring to mind at this very point, although it may come up later on, I think, in the conversation, is immigrants arriving. So Canada as a nation invites immigrants to come. They want to raise their population. They want to have grow their wealth. They want people who can come and contribute to the society. Invite us to come into the country. And yet, when people arrive, and then you go to open a bank account or you go to apply for jobs, first question is, where's your Canadian experience?
Hmm.
You want to purchase an item where the capital required is large, so you want to put some towards it and get a balance of a loan. That's like, what's your credit history? Well, I've just arrived. So that is inherent bias
Hmm.
that they use to actually make a judgment, not
Yeah.
against blacks, but against all.
Hmm.
It is bias.
Oh, one thing I can like to add too is you could have $100,000 in the bank and prove it to them, and they still wouldn't want to give you the item in question
Right?
too.
Because of what the record says.
Hmm. Okay, next one. So
So
this
yeah,
is
so that's
yours.
the point you just made there actually. So yeah, so any thoughts on this? Please share on the I think somebody else joined us as well. So um okay. So any thoughts on this? Please share in the chat if you have any experiences or you know of some experiences towards this idea of the whether to do credit score. I mean, for example, another good example on the credit score is you pay your rent on time, regularly, while saving, and then you reach a position where you reach a place in time where you'd like to go and take a mortgage.
Hmm.
The fact that you've been paying rent does not count towards your credit score.
Mm,
Only mortgage
true.
does. So again, bias. So imagine now that person bias exists, and then banks, financial services, insurance organizations now build a system to into which we put our profile for scoring when when we submit applications, but
Hmm.
that the algorithm they use, the profile that they use to do the rating still carries through how many years have you been here? How long have you been at your work? What's your salary? What do you have? Do you own a mortgage? It
Hmm.
doesn't ask, do you pay rent?
Exactly.
Right?
Uh, okay.
So we must consider all of these. Yes.
Okay.
So let's continue.
Now, example number two of AI bias. Employers requesting North American experience working for a position. However, applicant is a newcomer, which is relevant with relevant skills and experience and speaks multiple languages. Now, side note, remember how I shared with you everyone about how I have a recruitment background from way back when? Well, I've experienced this with one of my clients. So visualize this. Lady who was a newcomer comes to Canada. She was, I think, a high level, like a director of a bank. So she was probably overseeing probably 30 or 50 people in her branch alone in her country. She spoke about four languages, including English, and we took her resume, presented it to one of the banks in Canada, and they said she doesn't have quotation Canadian experience, and that left her devastated. We fixed up her resume a little bit more, made it more of a functional, so skills first, and then where you worked at the very bottom. And she was hired immediately by another institution that loved that she was from another country, spoke multiple languages, and she had management experience. And both jobs she was applying for, it wasn't as if she was applying to be a director, she was applying to be a teller or customer service rep. So that's where we have to start thinking of where biases comes in. Okay, I'm gonna move on, sake of time. Now, this is very critical in that AI bias, it creates systemic inequalities, it leads to discriminatory outcomes in sectors like law enforcement, healthcare, employment, and this affects the Black community. So this is why it's important for us to take on that charge and to really embrace AI and see how we can contribute, because these kind of biases can be to our detriment as a community.
If I can just add to that, the importance of that
Sure.
is we were saying AI. We must remember that the importance of what we're saying here is making it artificial intelligence is that whatever system is being created to be automated to create predictive behavior is based on the human knowledge today.
Hmm.
That's what is being used to create some kind of workflow, automation, and it's based on the bias. So whatever bias exists today now in the paper system, in the human function that is delivering those services gets carried away because when system designers, computer software designers, for them
Hmm.
to build a system, they have to interview those that are currently doing it. What is it that you do? What is it that you want? How do you do it? And then they build that into a system.
Hmm. Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So, thanks, Gladys. I'm just going to move on to the next one, which I believe it's you.
Yes. So ethical with in my journey of speaking about AI to various different conferences, I've come up with seven um with seven items that I believe should be included to be able to build an unbiased AI algorithm. The one of them is extremely important and cannot be ignored by government and by any authority. And all of them are important because it includes accessibility, privacy, evidence, validation of data, and all of that. But the ethical use, the ethical application, the ethical bias is critically important. So addressing AI bias is essential for creating fair and inclusive technology that accurately represent and serve all communities to foster trust and equity.
Hmm. Hmm.
I've attended some conferences in the legal sector. They're struggling with this. They're struggling with the ethical um, implication of
Hmm.
AI simply because they're not sure how to address it.
Hmm.
What is an
Hmm.
ethical um, impact? What is the ethical impact of knowledge, of so-called knowledge?
Hmm.
And then you bring ethics and bias together. How do you address that? What does it actually mean?
Hmm.
And I then say, okay, well, to be ethically unbiased, what about addressing culture?
Yep.
Culture has to come into that place as well because you cannot just say, um, well, this is the Canadian law. Yes, it is, but I my culture allows me to do X. How do we bring the two together? How do you respect? How does a CRA officer, how does a police officer ethically addresses an individual who has a culture that is different to that which they know?
Hmm. Exactly. Good,
It
well
is
said.
it's wider than that.
Hmm.
There's many more examples, but it will take too long for us to go into all of them. We're
Exactly.
just really highlighting some points here.
Okay, so another highlight is the importance of addressing the AI bias. So in community engagement, I'm heavily into the community side and like building, growing, and working together. And collaborating with the Black community ensures that AI solutions are generally reflected and their needs are driven, and there's more than a effective system being created. What that means is we as a people, we have to really get involved in technology, AI. I know that from my many years of experience working with the Black community, a lot of it was in, I guess, lower economic community that had financial challenges looking for work. A lot of them, when I was talking to them about, networking and listing their skills, a lot of them back in the day were scared of technology, did not want to go on social media, did not want to even use proper email system, didn't believe in, developing their skills technical wise. And that's why they were let go or unemployed from the job. So as the community, we're going to have to really start collaborating and getting involved. This is what you can take away from this message. I'm going to go on. Now, understanding the AI bias. From a visual standpoint, this is a prime example of facial recognition technology have been an issue consistently, whereby it seems to have less success in identifying Black people versus white people. Now, visualize this. If this is an issue ongoing of it can identify the white people or people of a lighter skin complexion versus people of darker skin complexion, what are some things that can start happening and popping up would work against us? You can type in the chat some of your thoughts. But one clear example of this was many years ago when they started working on the autonomous vehicle and they had cutouts of people for it to navigate. It kept hitting the people of darker complexion. And thank goodness they fixed that. But that's a clear indication of how, if we don't address this, we could have wrongful outcomes for our people.
Colin, can I just add here? Yes, yesterday I was traveling and we paused and started mixing and talking. And I actually got talking to a gentleman who I would not have said he was black, but as
Mhm.
we then got to where each other was from, he's
Yeah.
Ethiopian.
Okay.
And it looks very, very much like this guy that you have with the
Okay.
teeth, with the
Mhm.
faint. So we have a problem.
Yeah, we have a problem. It doesn't identify people. So if you aren't able to identify that person, what is technology and those coding the technology and doing the prompts, what are they putting in the system for stuff, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. So then the next thing we're going to cover is the impact of the AI bias in the Black community, hiring discrimination and bias resume screening. I've seen that back, we'll say about 20 years ago, whereby they started doing the computer sorting and targeting resumes and discrimination based on postal codes or zip codes if you're in the States. Prime example, one of the jobs I was at, I was a employment advisor, um, and I would work with a lot of people in the community, and it was a high needs, low income community with a lot of Black people serving majority of the population. Every time I sent out a resume specifically for a personal support worker within the area, the employer would reject a resume. So after a couple of rejections, I'm thinking something's wrong. The resume is fine. They have the skill set, they have the experience. What's going on? So I had a closer connection with the HR person. And then she shared with me privately that they do not take people of a certain zip code. Doesn't matter if they had a car to get around, they just do not hire people of that zip code or postal code. So this is 20 years ago. Can you imagine now? And then racial profiling in law enforcement could be possible, and inequities in healthcare diagnostic and treatments. A lot of the healthcare systems, they use a baseline for someone who's a Caucasian, and then they tweak it slightly to just for Black people. But a lot of times, that tweaking, adjusting of the figures results leads to misdiagnosing of people as well as medication issues, etc. And I'm sad to say that one of our friends, she passed away in childbirth because they misdiagnosed when she was going into labor and they didn't give her the treatment she needed. And then that's what happened. So we have to be cognizant of the fact that we have to get involved in the implicit bias of AI and how it affects the Black community. Okay?
Yeah, if I can add to that again, if you just go
Sure.
back to that screen, there's been several reports in the UK recently on that point you just made with the
Hmm.
misdiagnosis and mistreatment of pregnancy with Black women, you know.
Hmm.
So, and also um, there is still another one to come, which is AI driven. The DNA analysis, DNA mapping is
Mm,
becoming more
true.
affordable, it's
Hmm.
becoming more reachable. It's AI driven. The solutions, machines being built, hardware machines being built that are AI driven to be able to, very early stage map out an individual's DNA and then be able to predict at any point in time and be able to say, okay, yep, year one, year two, etc. Everything is looking good. Be able to say, oh, okay, I am 33 years old. We need to start monitoring this individual because of.
Hmm.
Are we in that space?
Mm,
Are we being tested? Are we part of that sampling?
yeah, it's interesting you say that. Hmm.
So,
That sounds like another webinar we can do.
yes,
All right, cool. We're going to move on.
yeah.
That's good. Oh, interesting point. Good point. This one's back to you now.
So let's look at strategies to mitigate AI bias. So we say the bias is there. It's unintentional, but it's there. So how do we mitigate against it? Well, we have to get youth involved. Some of you members in the audience have already mentioned towards this. We have to get our youth involved in STEM and
Hmm.
AI. We have to make sure that the data about us is included in the collection for testing. So there are organizations that come calling and knock and say, can you take part? Inherently, we like to say no. If
Yeah.
we say no, then we're not really providing information that will be, when we then turn up and need help, our information is not there because we said no in the first
Hmm.
place. So the systems don't know about us. I, I mean, take personally, I'm an open book about my history, my medical, my everything. But we don't like to talk about it. Our folks don't like to talk about anything to do with us. We're all fine.
Hmm.
Um, you go to the wide world, they talk about it. They share the information. We have to start to change ourselves in that way as well.
Hmm.
Um, it takes diverse AI development teams. I would even say it's spread across different cultures to be able to build an unbiased system. Because
Hmm.
if I am West African and I want to build a system for all Blacks, well, it's not going to address an African American from the South or from the Northeast or Black Canadian
Hmm.
or East African or Southern African unless there is an input from people that represent whether it's the building of the regional algorithm or
Hmm.
in the data that is collected to during the machine learning process.
Hmm.
Definitely, when you ask an AI um, engine to generate a Zulu image, it should have the machine learning, the library that's been created should have enough information to know where to go and read and get information that it doesn't go and create an
Hmm.
image of a person that it knows, which is okay, I only know of white models, and then beat drums because I think, oh, Zulu, oh yeah, Zulu beat drums. So you can see how it was created, but
Hmm.
it's 0 out of 100 in an exam.
Yeah, so I always say
Um,
those who control the code control the future, right?
Absolutely. So continuous monitoring and updating of the AI system. So we have to be a part of the story
Hmm.
and community input and feedback mechanisms. So we like this kind of space that we've started by creating. I would say this is a mechanism where we're putting out information out there and we're asking for
Hmm.
your feedback. Hopefully, you
Hmm.
go and spread the word and invite others and tell people about this great webinar that you attend. And we'll publish. There's another one in October. We'll talk about it in a moment. And
Hmm.
let's start to grow this community.
Hmm. Love it. Okay.
Uh, is this me or you?
Yep, it's definitely you.
Okay. So, what do we mean by community involvement and collaboration? So, education and skill development. Let's look to encourage and support Black students and professionals to pursue education and training in AI, in data science, and other related fields. As it happens, next month we're going to be looking at the specific areas of growth or areas around AI and STEM
Hmm.
in terms of professional careers. These could include scholarships, mentorship programs, and access to online courses. We need to get a wider, we have to go from 36%
Hmm.
to over
Yeah.
90% of blacks having bachelor's degree.
Hmm. Beautiful. Okay.
Next.
That's you again.
Also, advocacy and community engagement. So again, this is something that we're doing. We're not the only ones, but we are taking part in it. This is an advocacy. We're calling for action. We're educating. We're saying we must do this. And the next step from here is to get over to government agencies, decision-making agencies. We will be making this kind of information or promoting the kind of information to say, you need to do, this is an issue, this is not
Hmm.
right, we have to do more. I was part of I spent 4 years on the board of a very, very, very proactive and positive organization, which was very, very white. And my leaving message to them, which they appreciated, was I I brought a DEI policy and implementation that the face of the board has significantly changed, and they recognize that, and that was their parting speech for me. We have to participate in the community,
Hmm. Definitely.
change policies. The
Those last
third part of it
buzzwords.
is then to encourage. We have we need to be able to we need to increase representation of Black professionals in the AI industry by
Hmm.
pursuing careers in AI, technology, and related sectors. Additionally, encourage entrepreneurship within the community to create AI-driven businesses. We have to talk AI, AI, AI. We cannot shy away from it. We cannot be scared of it.
Hmm.
We must embrace it. We must make it part of our culture and
Hmm.
be let it be us.
Hmm.
Um, I've,
Exactly.
I think we can just take a look. There are a couple of comments added.
Okay. If you could
Um,
look up them because I
yeah,
do
so
not want to
that's
jinx
fine. That's
this.
fine. So yeah, so Alpha
We'll
mentioned
pause here.
Canadian job experience for fresh Black immigrants is discouraging. Absolutely, it's
Yeah.
discouraging. I attended a conference earlier this year that's to do, remember what they call, but it's a immigration organization, a government agency. And I stood up and I asked, I said, why does the federal government website talk about Canadian experience?
Yeah.
The link is there. I have it. The Canadian government website, federal government
Hmm.
talks about Canadian experience. Why are you
Hmm.
inviting me to your country? If Canadian
Not
experience
gonna
is
hire. Yeah.
important. So and
That was
then
my
Megan
challenge
said,
recruitment. Yeah. Great people who had a lot of skills who were overqualified and they weren't giving them the
oh,
opportunity.
absolutely. We're very
Yeah.
overqualified because we come
Yeah.
in with our PhDs and everything and say, well, why do you want this job? You're overqualified. Oh my
Hmm.
goodness. Okay, I go and drive Uber then. Um, Yeah, and Megan also cited that mitigation should be part of AI governance. Oh, yes, indeed,
Yes,
Megan.
definitely. Love
It
that.
should be built into the rules and regulations governing all AI systems, overall safe and transparent provision. One thing I can add to that is that there is one organization that I follow strictly and very closely on AI development, and that's IBM.
Mhm.
IBM created first computers, and they're the creators of AI. I follow them because they've created this and they're trying to implement it themselves as their own culture, as their system, and they are openly, transparently admitting that they're struggling with it. So they are
Mhm.
putting so much of their energy into it to learn it to make sure it works. That's because they acknowledge it. Okay,
Mhm.
so I'm really encouraged by that. And governance, ethics, absolutely,
Yep,
totally, you're correct.
definitely love that. Okay, so I'm just going to share with you a bit of our solutions at myaipathway.org. Going to give Clytus a bit of a rest. So developing AI software, that's what we're getting into, and we're about to identify and correct the biases. That's one of our mandates. A continuous research programs to monitor and address AI biases is another thing we're also working on, as well as collaboration with the Black communities for authentic data representation. And we can't do all this great work alone. We need your help. Okay. And then now we'll just pause for a moment for time for Q&A. So you can open up the mics and ask questions or type in the chat. We're fine. And we just have a few more slides to go after the Q&As. Thoughts?
Let us have some questions.
I guess one question I can ask is, what did you think of the webinar so far? Did you find it helpful, insightful?
Anyone other than me answer that?
But you're biased. Yeah, yeah, bias. We're all both, you and I are both biased. Okay. So
It will
no
be
worries.
feedback will be helpful for us to as we develop this series of webinar. Feel free to
Oh,
send.
I think there's
Thank
something in
you.
the chat there.
Enjoy. Okay, and feel free to send emails in with your point of view. At some point, we're going to start sending out surveys. Because
Oh, Claudius, do you mind reading the chat? Because I don't want to click on
yeah,
and then it
Megan's asking
progresses.
provide some background and information about the AI world governance. Yeah, you want me to give you this as an answer now, Megan, or to provide some series of information for you going from here?
Um, I'm just interested in the work that is currently being done in this front
Okay.
because I know it's very slow and forthcoming. However,
Mm-hmm.
it would be interesting to know how far they've come, and there's still a lot of work to be done. I realize that. But
Hmm.
what is basically what provisions they're making into making sure that they are successful and they are basically moving uh, the same speed as the technology is moving, and that they are
Mm-hmm.
mitigating some of these harmful impact of or negative impact of
Mm-hmm.
AI on our society,
Yeah,
in general.
there's several components to it, and are they all moving at the same speed? I'll say no, no, they're not.
No,
Are
no,
they all
definitely
heading
not.
to the same direction? Yes, is where they're trying to. The biggest player in this is government. The reason for that
Mm-hmm.
is government holds the largest amount of information about individuals. So therefore, they are I mean, we use the language that government data is king. So
Mm-hmm.
anything that needs to go out or that does go out really has personal information, and personal information comes from government. From the moment we're born and register a child, the government gives some kind of ID that follows that person all the way through. So when we
Mm-hmm.
have hacks, security issues, it then starts to center around that ID. So privacy, data validation, protection is critical. And so government has to be the centerpiece of data structure, data governance, access to information, and all of that.
Mhm.
Now, I mentioned IBM earlier. Part of the work that IBM is doing, they have 10 key areas that they are following, all of which they're working with governments to say, those are the areas, responsibility. The
Mhm.
information that government collects and keeps about people, there has to be some responsibility about it in terms of the data that they collect. At the same time, and also keep it and be private with it.
Mhm.
Okay. Because your data gets so governance is one of the biggest area because it covers all of that.
Mhm.
And it is I mean, the way to answer that is what is the end goal? There isn't an end goal because we're learning along the way.
Mhm.
We just have to make sure that by the time this thing called AI matures, we have some good control and governance around it.
Yeah, I'm actually
Okay.
reflective of the quote by Sherlock Holmes. No, it's a fictional character, but he says it's a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. So hence why it's important for the Black community to participate in the data collection.
Yes.
Okay.
It also, in my mind, it also has to incorporate um, enforcement, because
Yes.
if you have rules and regulations and don't have any body that will enforce these rules and regulations,
Hmm.
um, people can step outside of their boundaries and do whatever necessary to basically excel their intentions. And
Exactly. Well said.
it,
Yeah.
you
Megan,
know,
I think I'm going to be following up with you because you're picking up the very, very, very deliberate languages.
Yep.
thank you.
Before jumping on this AI bandwagon from the perspective of ethics and protection and all that kind of stuff, again, I brought this up at the legal conference at University of Windsor I attended, where that very point is they're scared of it because they
Yeah.
don't know,
Hmm.
but it's an essential. It has to be addressed.
Absolutely. And the sad state of affairs, in my mind, is that the government is what we have to appeal
Yeah.
to. And they are
Hmm.
the body that we all trust, hopefully, to
Hmm.
do the right thing. And if they are complacent in their, action, it is going
Hmm.
to affect all of us, not just
Yep.
one sector over another, but all of us
No,
in one way or the other.
absolutely. Yeah, indeed. Because I asked the question, I said, why do you think, this was all the legal people there, I said, why do you think you can govern, you can police this growth, this thing called AI, when we've had laws for the government of Ontario has had a law in place for 10 years for accessibility, that all websites should be accessible to all, whether they're blind, partially blind, colorblind, whatever it is. Um, all websites should be, yet no one polices it. So how on earth are you going to police this thing that is even greater? No
Hmm.
government can actually put resources into that. I do give kudos to the European Union because they're probably, I would say they're the leaders in challenging. That's why you hear them suing Google in particular. They seem to be
Yeah.
after Google. I've never heard IBM be sued before because IBM is a responsible organization that wants it to actually work and say this is how it works. Whereas other organizations like Google, it's money, money, money. Oh, you're a competitor, they buy that competitor and then tear it apart.
Hmm. It's true. I'm just going to move forward to a calls of action
Yes.
because we are want to respect your time because this is a great discussion and I want to stay longer, but I got to honor everyone's time. So, Claudius, you want to just cover the calls to action?
Yes. So what we're looking at is as the organization grows and we look to grow, we certainly would want to build a community of interested parties, um, promoters of the organization, promote our mission. So um, we're looking for you to invest in my aipathway.org as a member, as a community advocate, as an advocate of the organization, promote our mission within your community, enroll your children in our education programs. Look out for those. We'll be launching and uh, programs that we'll be doing shortly. Become a volunteer and follow us on social media. By following us on social media, you'll be seeing a lot of what we're doing. Like as I've said before, I am the main speaker in particular for now, and others will be joining us. I do, we do post a lot of our stuff on our website and on LinkedIn mainly.
Yeah, yes. And I'm just going to give everyone a quick recap. I know we covered a lot of stuff, but the recap, key points are AI is transformative in power. While AI can revolutionize industries, it's also can reinforce biases, and particularly against marginalized communities. Another point to take back with you is critical for the Black community to understand the AI bias is critical due to its impact on hiring, law enforcement, and health. Exacerbating discrimination without intervention, AI bias can amplify, inequalities in the different communities. Mitigation strategies, inclusive data, diverse teams, ongoing systems checks, community input are essential to combat the bias. And I'm going to remind you about our My AI Pathways mission. We're developing AI tools to identify and correct biases, engage in continuous research, and collaborate with Black communities for fair representation. And this is our next workshop taking place on October 17th. We'll have that on our website. I can include in the chat shortly the link to register, or you can go to our website, myaipathway.org. And its title is From Passion to Paycheck, Mastering the Path to Success in AI and STEM Careers. It's all about empowering the Black community to lead in the age of technology. So I want to thank you for your time. Gladys and I thank you. And if you want to find more about us, here's information of myaipathway.org, and you can email us if you want to send us some more communication. It's myaipathway@gmail.com. I think that's it. We'll stay on for a little bit longer, but we wanted to respect people's time. I know everyone's busy.
Yes,
And
and thank you very much for joining
yeah,
us and giving us your time this lunchtime
oh,
and your
there's some
Thank you for your
interaction.
time.
comments.
Thank you for your time. Thank you
Yeah,
very,
Thank
thank
very
you.
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to put
Thank
in the
you.
chat
We'll
our
send you the link to the recording.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.